What is up, Colts fans? We're back with another episode of the SI Colts Draft Show. This is episode 3. And again, instead of going in like an order, going like a lot of people do, we went to receivers this week because, you know, Hag and I, we love talking DBs, we love talking corners, but receivers are the guys, right across from them. They're the guys that are just as fun to talk about. So,
Oh yeah.
Hag, you've always kind of been big on ranking receivers and talking receivers,
hmm
right?
Yeah, it's I feel like it goes back to one of my trainers, when I played DB and stuff, he would always make us run routes. And it was one of his things was if you can't run the route, then you can't cover it. And
Okay.
so that was one of the things that I've always respected the position. I've always studied the position. So I watch it closely because in my head I coach DBs. So
Mhm.
I need to know the ins and out of that position so I can teach my guys, what's coming their way. So that's why I've been so enamored with the receiver position, and that's why I've always posted receivers and went in depth with how I feel about those guys.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about your rankings that you threw up on Twitter the other day. Let me get them up here. And another really great graphic from John Hagler at John Hagler CR there on
Cooking.
Twitter. And I think this class is super interesting because like your top 12 guys
hmm
could be like you could have maybe 6 or 7 different names in there,
Oh
in
yeah,
this class.
no, 100%, and that was almost the case. I think there's plenty of guys that could, that nearly made the list that we even talked about, off camera that could have been in there. I moved some guys around. I watched some guys some more, and then 1 through 7 for a lot of people can be very, very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what we're going to do today. So we're going to go a little different format today, hopefully to cut down a little bit on the time. Hag and I will talk for hours if you let us. So we'll
Right.
do a little bit. What I'll do is I'll bring in some of your guys' Twitter questions, also bring in some of my own questions that I have for Hag and
Okay.
his ranking. Even though I think me and him have the same top 6, so I
Okay.
mean, we're not too
Smooth.
different. But let's start off with the top of your list here. A lot of people are saying Burks is by far and away wide receiver 1. I've seen a
hmm
lot of people with Drake London at wide receiver 1. Chris Olave has some hype for that. Uh,
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, what does he do that kind of separates him and puts him at wide receiver 1 for you?
I feel like Garrett Wilson has the least amount of holes with the
Hmm.
most elite traits, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, that was funny. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I put a lot of time into him. Um, but yeah, no. So Garrett Wilson for me doesn't have. I don't think he has any flaws as a prospect, as a receiver
Hmm.
prospect. To me personally, I mean, maybe you could want him to be bigger, but that's kind of out the window a little bit. He's not little. I think he's listed at 192. Garrett Wilson for me. Somebody brought it up today on Twitter. D'Lo, I think, actually asked me who's a better prospect to me, CeeDee Lamb or Gary Wilson.
Yes, I saw
And
that.
yeah,
Yep.
and one of the things that I mentioned was I think he can do everything that CeeDee Lamb can do, who was a very good professional receiver, very good college receiver, does everything well, but he has a little bit more juice. When I see Gary Wilson, I see Odell. I see Odell Beckham. Not just because he's been all in the, but I've said it from the jump. Gary Wilson's been my receiver number 1 for the last year. I think that he doesn't always get as much credit because they have such a talented room, kind of like the Jerry Judy, Smitty, Waddle, Ruggs type thing. But he makes acrobatic catches. He can run. His routes are crisp. He's twitchy as hell. He creates natural separation, and he's a great hand catcher. So there's just not a ton of flaws with Wilson for me.
Yeah, I agree. I have him as my wide receiver 1 as well. But one thing that I'm kind of curious about is his athleticism. Do you think it's
hmm
going to be top tier? Do you think it's going to be very good? Do you think it's going to be average? Where do you kind of put like his overall speed? I mean, I know his quickness is going to be like his change of direction is going to be really good.
I think
But what
it's
about his speed?
I think you put him in the same boat as Judy,
Okay.
as Jerry Judy's prospect. Like he's fast, but he's not on a scale of 1 to 10. I'll give Gary Wilson speed a 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On that scale. 9 is, Julio Jones, Megatron, those guys. 10
Jamar
is Tyreek
Chase.
Hill. Yeah,
Jamar
Jamal,
Chase.
like, yeah, those guys. So I put him on an 8. Like he's going to beat you. He's not gonna have any problem beating DBs. His athleticism, I put it in that same category as, like I said, the Judys, even like a Devontae Adams. It's very good, but I think he's actually got a little bit more twitch and he's a little faster than Devontae.
Mhm.
But I put it in that same category: elite body control, change of direction, enough speed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Enough. Yeah, I don't worry about it at all, but it's plenty enough for him to be a wide receiver one.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep going back to this graphic that you made here, this beautiful graphic, because you moonlight as a as a graphic designer.
Yeah, man.
And I'll just throw mine up afterwards too. Mine does not have a nice graphic. Mine was just on the Draft Network, but
It's a job done.
I only got my top 8, but we have the same names in the top 6 here. I
Hmm.
think I
And
switched
top three.
Pickens. Yeah, same top 3. I think I switched Pickens and Olave,
Okay.
and then Mechie and I had Wandell right there, right afterwards. But looking back at yours, yeah, I think Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 1 for me. But then, I see a lot of people with Jameson Williams as a round 1 guy.
Yeah.
I feel like there is some debate though in having him over Burks or Drake London. Um,
Uh-huh.
how do you kind of grade guys against each other? Like a guy like Jameson Williams, who's a deep threat, like a smaller, not smaller, but smaller than Burks or London. How do you kind of grade a guy like that versus bigger dudes like Pickens, London, and Burks?
So it's basically a different styles conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I asking myself which receiver will seamlessly transition into an NFL offense. When I go to ranking prospects like this, and I think Jameson Williams, initially the perception is he's just a deep threat, but he's a lot more savvy of a wide receiver than people get him credit for. He's a lot better route runner than people give him credit for. It's near the top of the class. Not, I won't say it's elite, but it's good. Um, he's crafty with his hands, but I think Jameson Williams is wide receiver too because one, he has a rare trait. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
that speed,
Yes.
that speed is rare, but not only is the speed rare, is he going to run fast? He plays with rare speed, like Tyreek Hill, like those guys that we see that can just cut it on, and you're like, whoa, it's different. But I think that's what does for Traylon Burks is going to need an OC that's going to use him. If you
Yeah.
just tell me you're going to line up Traylon Burks up there, move him around the slot, move him on the outside, he'll be productive, but he's not going to be great. You want to use him in that Debo role, but you want the offensive coordinator to be like, I have to get him the ball, the Cooper Kupp, the Debo type role, because he is a freak athlete. He is a mismatch. He has the size speed combination. That's what you have to do with Traylon Burks. And if you don't do that, you're wasting the talent, the monster that is Burks.
Yeah. And let's get to the probably I don't want to say the most controversial, but I guess Drake London at 6 is probably something that a
Yeah.
lot of people would
Yeah.
be a little bit, shy about saying. But what for you puts these other guys over Drake London? Like, why is Drake London your wide receiver 6 rather than like 1 or 2, like we're seeing him in a lot of sites?
For me, the Drake London thing, I've seen him at wide receiver 1, I've seen him at 2, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I think Drake London is going to be a great wide receiver 1B or 2 in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's very good, he's very safe, he has some very, very great traits. You know what I'm saying? But it's been a couple years since people have said Mike Evans is the best receiver in the NFL. It's been a couple years since, if you go look at I think I looked at the top 15 receivers in the NFL. The 2 receivers that are like Drake London that are in there, they're Mike Williams and they're Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Those 2, right?
It's not that type of receiver
You
that
have
finds
to
success.
exactly. You have to look at trends, right? So if I look at the top of the NFL, if you go tell me, okay, Cooper Kupp, what is he? Route runner, not quick guy, separator, reliable. He creates separation. Okay, you look at Tyreek Hill, elite speed, burner, right? You look at Devontae Adams, elite route runner, separator. When you look at all those guys near the top, aside from like the tight ends, and they separate for their position, he compares more favorably to those guys as opposed to the Devontae Adams. He has great quickness for his size. Don't get me wrong. And me having him at 6 is just a testament of what I think about Pickens and what I think about Olave. I think those guys could be true wide receiver 1s. I don't think that's Drake London's role in the NFL right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Mike Evans, I don't want to say comp, but the comparison sort of to, that type of receiver. Because Drake
Yeah.
London, like,
It's the
it's
play
kind of like,
style.
yeah, it's kind of like Michael Pittman Jr. to me, where it's like he's a big guy, but
Yeah.
he does have
Yeah.
a lot of
I like
smooth
him.
elements. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him, and he can be good. If he goes out there and catches for 1,000 yards, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
And I'll have a lot of people talking about, you had him at 6. No, like he's good. He's really good at football. Like honestly, nobody expected Michael Pittman to have the year that he had, right?
Mm-hmm.
It for him to be and he saved my fantasy team. Shout out to him. He balled out for me. But in an ideal situation, you have a deep threat, a more a scarier receiver lined up opposite Michael Pittman, and then he really thrives. That's the role
Mhm.
I see for um Drake London. You know what I mean? And his game is similar to Allen Robinson, to Mike Williams. You know what I mean? Those guys aren't considered true wide receiver ones. They are, you know what I mean? But they just don't, they're not terrifying people. They're good NFL players. And I think that's what Drake London is.
Yeah. So do you see the guys above him, the five guys you have above him, as true wide receiver ones in the NFL?
Mhm. I think they have more of the ability to be. So
Okay.
when we talk about Chris Olave, he's
Mhm.
safe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If I can plug Chris Olave into any offense, and I think he's going to be very good. Um, and it's not necessarily an upside thing. I think out of the top five, I think he has the lowest upside. But if Chris Olave looked up and you're telling me he was top five in the NFL in receptions and yards in 3 years, I wouldn't doubt it because he's safe.
Yeah.
George Pickens is the wild card. Healthy George Pickens, I think he's in that top 3 category. He's a freak athlete, great length. He's an acrobat. He's twitchier than Drake London. He's twitchier than the guys who were kind of built like him. The Drake Londons, the T Higgins, those. I think he has a little bit more juice than him. And you saw the success he's had the last 2 years, and he was essentially basically a first round pick, being the 33rd pick. But that's how I feel about it. I think their upside is higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of that special trait scouting, like you mentioned with
Mhm.
Williams here, is like it's a big reason why DK Metcalf fell. Where it's like, yeah, there were some things that would tell you like, maybe he won't succeed, but he had those special traits. It's
And
that
he broke
special
his
like
neck.
what can yeah, yeah, that's true.
Like
That's true. That is a reason why he fell.
yeah, 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 yeah. That was a weird one because like he was getting serious first round buzz. Like it
Yeah.
was serious, but
Like
it
top tier
terrified
first round,
people.
like top we're talking
Yeah.
like top 10 buzz, yeah.
And he should have been, you know what I mean? I know limited action, but when you have an injury like that, people, I don't know, for the people out there, you get flagged when you get hurt. Like George Pickens is gonna have to go through medicals. Drake London is gonna have to go through medicals. Jameson Williams, like all those guys are gonna have to pass the medical check. And when you see a guy slide, it's because teams mark that guy off. Oh, no, we flagged him here. This team flagged him here. This team flagged him here. Well, if 8 of the top 20 flagged you, bro, and that's your range, you're probably gonna slip to the back end of the first or the second. That's just
Yeah.
reality.
It reminds me of when I first started getting into this. When you're kind of younger and getting into it, you're like, "Oh, this guy's film is so good. He's gonna have to go round one." And
Yeah.
then the guy that you had hyped yourself up as like a top 20 player, Carl Lawson, drops to the fourth round.
Yep.
And you're like, how does Carl Lawson go in the fourth round? Like I watched all
Incredible
his
football
film. He's
player.
so good. But he had the injury issues coming out, and
Yep.
he got flagged by a ton of teams. And the
And look
Bengals,
at his career.
yeah, yeah,
And
that's
his
true.
career has been that. He's flashed, he's flashed, he's flashed, but every other year Carl Lawson goes down. And that's the thing. The sooner you get injuries in your career, it kind of stays with you. It plagues you a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. And that's actually my next question I was going to ask you is like, how do you, as someone who's not with these teams, you're not evaluating these guys' injuries, but how do you kind of stack the
Mhm.
injuries with guys like Jameson Williams, George
Mhm.
Pickens, Drake London, John
Yep.
Mechie? I mean, all these guys have injuries
Yeah.
coming into this pre-draft process.
Yeah. And so let's start with, Jameson Williams and Mechie. Because they're the most recent ones.
Hmm.
The knee injury used to terrify me. It used to terrify everybody. Surgeries are a lot better. The medicine's better. We saw Cam Akers come back from an Achilles, like, you know what I mean.
We
We
saw
saw Mark
Eric Fisher with the Colts tore his Achilles in, I want to say, late January,
and
and
made it back.
he played week two. He
Yeah,
played week
it,
two.
even when you go look at Amari Rogers, that year at Clemson, he
Yeah.
tore it in April and made it opening day. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not as bad as it used to be. It just isn't. Obviously the injury, the re-injuring that knee is a thing, but it doesn't completely back me off.
Yeah.
The thing that worries people when you're evaluating those injuries is their nerve damage, how many of the ligaments were damaged, what's the long term diagnosis, and what effects will it have on their career, and how long do I have this guy for? Is it 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years? Drake London, the ankle, it mid-season, he's had plenty of time to recover. I know he's moving around already. I've seen him working out and stuff
Okay,
like that.
that's good.
So I know he's out there training and all that. So it doesn't bother me. Now if you would have went out there and I've heard like mangled knee, if it's a Marcus Lattimore situation, if it's like the first one, was it Chubb when he first hurt his knee, like when
Hmm.
those like, completely tore, like that scares me. But these injuries right now, they just don't terrify me. I'm obviously waiting like everybody else to hear the medicals back from the combine, which is huge. And
Hmm.
then that's why this is the first series of the rankings. That's why it has 1.0 beside it. If a guy gets flagged and I hear that, back and I do my homework, he's gonna drop. But right now, I'm just not. It's not doing it for me. I'm not scared.
Yeah, luckily we don't have any like Jay Ajayi types with generative knees or
Oh yeah,
something like
those.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's my guy at the Cowboys that got cut? Notre Dame.
Oh, Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
those type of injuries scare me, but I haven't heard any of that. Like all these guys are moving around, they're good. So
Yeah, yeah. So looking at a couple guys here, and I'm just peppering you with questions. And since this is a Colts podcast, this SI Colts draft show, we have to talk about David Bell, uh,
yep.
Biletnikoff, or a finalist. I think Biletnikoff finalist. He just barely lost out
Hmm.
to Addison and at Pitt. You have him at number 11 here. I
Yeah.
agree. My ranking, I would have had him at 11 as well if mine went
Okay.
to 11. But I'm curious, kind of your thought process in that. Why is this so productive receiver that's in Purdue, which is right here in Indy? So you got to be careful here.
Yeah.
Why do you have him at 11?
So if I went on a couple podcasts last off season, and if people would have heard me talk about him then, they'd really be mad. Because I did not, I thought he was Jarvis Landry, and I thought he was getting top 15 consideration. But I went back and watched the film, and I liked him a lot more this go around than I did last year.
Yeah.
Which I know I have him at 11, but that's because I end up like Watson
It's a
and
super strong class.
yeah,
It might not have
Watson
a
popped
Jamar
in there,
Chase guy. It might not have like a Jamar Chase that's going to go like
generational guy.
yeah, like but it has a lot of really. I mean,
Yeah,
again, we have
and
12
that's the
guys.
hard part.
Yeah, you have 12 guys. I'm telling you, there's 20 guys that could have been in that top 12.
No, 100%. And there's another 5 that I had in it that was in this ranking at one point, and that got moved around. Sky Moore, Alec Pierce got consideration. Kyle Phillips got
The
consideration.
ranking that you actually put out shocked me because you texted me earlier in the week and told me
Yeah.
which guys are not going to make it, and then I saw a couple of them in this, and I was like, what?
Yeah,
What?
so because I had to go back and I rewatched the film,
Yeah.
and I watched more. So initially, the initial evaluation is 3 or 4 games. I do the standard, but then I went back and I started watching some different aspects of the game, and I like David Bell a lot more after the season. He makes it
Mhm.
look easy. I don't think he's an incredible athlete, but I think he can be really good. I think he's going to be the guy that hopefully he slips a little bit and he ends up in a good quarterback situation. But David Bell is a natural pass catcher. He has great yak ability. But him being at 11 was because Watson lit up the Senior Bowl, which was really good for me. And he's damn near a freak. Like when they're saying he's clocking 22, 23 miles per hour, that changes things for me. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, I really liked his ability when I went back and rewatched. I watched him all throughout the year, was a fan, and I was telling people how good he was, but I sat down and watched it. I was like, that's an instant impact guy. So that's
Yes.
why David Bell's at 11. But if somebody has him higher, I'm not gonna. If somebody has him 7 through 10, I'm not gonna be mad at him because he can play.
Yeah. Do you see him as like an X receiver then because he's not like that much of like how is he versus press? I haven't watched him a ton, but do you think he's
I,
kind of more of an X?
yeah, I saw people get hands on him. But
Yeah.
he's a bigger guy, so he's not afraid of it. His game, to be honest, is a slower Jamar Chase style.
Yeah, because I
You
know
know
he
what I mean?
gets down the field and
Yeah.
then he bullies you down the field and he's going to
Hmm.
go up and get it before
Yeah.
your
And
DB does.
and I tread lightly. I tread lightly with that one because I don't want to fall into the N'Keal Harry trap.
Yeah, it's
Because
tough.
yeah, so it's like Jamar Chase did it. This is where the competition factor goes in. Jamar Chase did it against future NFL corners.
Yeah,
I don't know how many future NFL corners, David Bell did it against. Impressive, but It's just something you have to watch, and that's why him testing is going to be important. Once we
Mhm.
see those numbers and be like, oh, he's just an easy mover. He ran a
Yeah.
4.4,
Yeah.
or he goes up there and busts a 4.61, and we're like, okay,
Yeah.
like you're a third option guy.
I do agree, though. I do like that the idea of where he goes maybe late second or something
Yep,
to a team.
yep.
And I know all Colts fans will be like, "Yeah, to the Colts." I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe they kind of need more of a burner, but
Yeah, that's
but
why that's what I think. I need more juice with the Colts, man. Match them up with Pittman.
yeah, we need Pittman with some juice, and we'll talk about that with one of the fan questions. But
Okay.
yeah, I like that spot for Bell. I think he's a very good receiver, and there's a reason why he put up so many big numbers. But
Yep.
I'm with you and him being a little bit lower. I think a question I'm looking at this because I actually had them a little bit closer in my ranking, not super close, but
Mhm.
Olave versus Mechie.
Okay.
How do you? Because I think they're kind of similar, where they're both kind of safer, really
Yep.
smooth, really nuanced receivers. How come the big separation between the two there?
I think Mechie is really good in the short area,
Mhm.
safe in the intermediate area, but I think Olave is better at the top of routes.
Okay, I can see that.
Olave, yeah, Olave will lose you. He'll beat a DB at the top of the stem, give him a little bit more, and Mechie is more of a give you the move, and then I have enough speed to scare you, but he's not. I don't think he's giving DBs nightmares with his speed. Olave will get behind you in a hurry, as Mechie will kind of the thousand cuts death type thing.
Yeah, Mechie, his release game is insane.
Oh, he's
Uh,
very
he
polished. He's
kills
super
everybody
polished.
off the line. Like again, we were talking on here about Roger McCreary
Yeah,
and Elam last week, and you watch those games against those guys, and like they're doing fine against Jameson Williams. It's
yeah.
just when they
Mechie,
go against Mechie, it's a different animal at the line of scrimmage.
he's so polished, and I was such a fan of him before he popped at Bama. I get a lot of like info from there because a lot of people are either go there and from there. So I was hearing a lot about Mechie when he was a freshman. And when he was a freshman, I just said, man, this kid just worked his ass off. He's next. He's next. And he flashed. And then his sophomore year came, and I was like, I told y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I told y'all, and he was lighting it up this year, again. And I think he's just a really good football player. I think he has some dog to him. I compared him like a Sterling Shepard type.
Hmm.
I think
I think
that's
it's
his role.
great
Yeah.
comparison for him.
I
Yeah.
tweeted that. I said, whatever the value that you have for Sterling Shepard, whatever you think Sterling Shepard is in the NFL, that's John Mechie.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
agree. I agree. I think that's a really good comp for him. I think, and I hate saying this because this guy arguably or not even arguably, had the greatest receiver year of all time.
uh,
But I see like a little bit of like at the college game, like Cooper Cup type,
yeah,
where he's so good off the line, the route
mhm,
running so great. The
yeah,
40 is not going to be that great if he were to run the 40.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm not comparing it to Cup. Cup is
But see,
insane.
I get that. I get what you mean. It's
Yeah,
when you make a comparison, a lot of people get mixed up in the name, but it's more
yeah,
the style, the style of play, the route salesman, the craftiness, the polishness of that receiver, the toughness that they have at the position. They're not overly dominant physically, but they are that type of receiver, like Devontae Adams, Cooper Cup, Stephon Diggs. Nobody is labeling those guys elite athletes, and if they say they did, they're lying because
yeah,
that's just not the truth. Mechie falls into that type of receiver, and I
yeah,
love that. I love that comparison to that style of play because that's what he is. If he gets to an offense and somebody feeds him, he's gonna catch 100 balls. He's that type of guy. I would love to see John Mechie reunite with Mac Jones. I would love to see
Oof.
that because he's that type of receiver.
Okay, but the Patriots don't really do a good job of drafting receivers.
No,
They'll
no, 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 no. They'll. I, maybe Mechie drops, or something like that. But they have missed a lot, a lot
a
of receivers.
lot,
But
a lot of
Mechie's an
receivers.
easy one though.
He is.
Mechie's an easy eval. When you watch him, he clears medicals, bro. Somebody you have to snatch him up, and that's why I think some people are higher. They're like, why is Mechie so low, or why is he here? I'm like, because he's a fan favorite, and he's just a good receiver, man.
Yeah, he was the guy that everyone was talking about as being the next guy at Bama, and
Yeah.
then Jameson Williams comes in, he kind of steals the show. But
Yeah, he was supposed to be. It was his year, but I also think he had a lot of success because of Jameson.
yeah,
Because he killed people in the middle in the short game.
Yeah. Now we got some Twitter questions I want to go to, and before I take up every single question here, but we have Aaron here on Twitter at Aaron97 underscore. I think that's
Mhm.
like 3 underscores after his name, but he says, "I'd love to know if John believes that Pickens will be 100% after the ACL injury. Yes, he played in the college football playoff, but he was almost a non-factor outside of a couple plays."
Yeah. I think so. I haven't heard anything. And he's from the same place I'm from, Birmingham.
Hmm.
I haven't heard anything negative. Obviously there could be some things going on, but typically you hear something by now. He played. I wouldn't even step foot on the field again if I were him. So I don't think if it was an issue, he would not have played at all. He played against Georgia Tech, played against Alabama the first time, played against them in the entire playoffs. Limited action, but I think that was just due to the fact that they just wanted him back.
Yeah.
They
Well,
wanted
just
him
his
out there.
presence, just the
Yeah.
presence out there.
And
Yeah.
he's a dude for him, and he was one of the big pulls a couple years ago. They pulled him out of the state of Alabama. I think he gives that team an edginess because of he's a dog, and I think he's a leader for that team. And I think Kirby wanted him on. I think he wanted him out there instead of opting out. I think that's what happened. I think George Pickens is healthy, and if he is healthy, he's a premier receiver in this class. Like the kid's special. He has some stuff to him.
Yeah, I'm going to keep with the Pickens questions here. And this one,
Okay.
even though it's not bringing up Pickens, I think we're both going to say Pickens here. Best blocking wide receiver in this class.
Blocking was
Now,
it.
just from what I've seen, I would say
Mhm.
Pickens. I think Pickens lights dudes up.
Pickens is mean.
He's
Like
mean.
Pickens, I think Pickens, I think Mechie is in the category.
Hmm.
I think he has some nastiness to him. I think I mean, I know we just talked about them too, but I think Pickens and Mechie, among them top guys, they have the most willingness to block and the most physicality doing so. So
Yeah.
I know that's it. That was kind of it seems kind of easy now because we talked about them, but I think they enjoy blocking.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, Pickens, it's very, because, I watched Colts all year. Like, Michael Pittman Jr. will just lay dudes out as a blocker.
yeah,
We've seen Zach Pascal do it in the past as
yeah.
well. Pickens just will, like, he'll kill
He's mean.
dudes.
I'm telling you, when Pickens steps on the football field, he has a mean streak, and like you
Yeah.
need that. And I know he got some trouble earlier, and like, he gets the high head rap a little bit, but like you need that guy every now and then. If I have Cooper Cup on one side, you know what I'm saying? Not that he's not a dog, but like he's just nobody's terrified of him. Oh no, that's Shaq over there. Like that's he's
Yeah, that's
gonna
a great comparison.
he's gonna bully me. Like yeah, George Pickens is gonna bully you. He's gonna let you know that hey, I'm here. I'm not going nowhere. I'm gonna run through you like who did he do? Was it Daxton Hill?
Yes, it was Daxon Hill. Yeah,
I
I
love
think,
Daxton. I
and
love
that was
Daxton.
when that was again, like we were saying. I think that was in the playoff, right? Where
Yeah, yeah,
Pickens,
yeah. He goes,
yeah,
I love Daxton. Daxton Hill's a first round pick for me. Like he's one of my top safeties. Like I love his versatility. But when George Pickens pointed at that line and was like, all right, and looked to the sideline, and when he did that to him, he bench pressed him. And I was like, whoa, like I love that.
yeah,
I hate it, but I love it. So
yeah. This is why Colts fans are saying we need smaller guys, we need smaller D. I was like, I want Pickens in Indy just so corners just get terrified
that
of
presence,
whoever they
man.
just that presence. Every time the Colts run the ball, you're like, oh shit, one
He's
of these
here.
guys is gonna come and block
He's
me.
here.
Like,
They're
oh.
looking. They're looking a little bit more. They're kind of
Yeah.
looking behind the back.
Yeah, and then Jake Morley, who is doing the receiver section on the draft guide I'm working on. You guys give him a
Mhm.
follow. It's at Jacob Morley. Great draft mind. He's in love with George Pickens. Loves
Yeah.
George Pickens.
Hey, you
I
should
don't.
be.
Yeah, I don't think he's. Yeah, his question is why isn't George Pickens the consensus number one receiver?
Mhm.
Now, I don't think he has Pickens as number one as a
Yeah.
receiver, but again, loves Pickens. If you think if Pickens were completely healthy, no ACL, do you think he'd be be in that conversation for wide receiver one?
100%. Um, he should be,
Yeah,
but Georgia's offense would probably take him out of it.
Stetson
Um,
Bennett would have taken him out a
yeah,
little
that
bit.
because the thing is the offense isn't receiver friendly.
No,
You're gonna have to be an evaluator to see how special he is. You think about it, he lit the Sugar Bowl up with Jake Fromm.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that was such a
he
good game, man.
I think it would be a slow burn. It'd be a slow cook, but by the end of the process, come April or whatever, at the end of April, he would be in that conversation. He would be a top
Yep.
3 guy because he is more polished than Traylon Burks. He is more physically imposing than Jameson Williams. and Garrett Wilson. So it's what your flavor is. I don't think he would be wide receiver 1, but he'd be in that top 3 for sure, like 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Jake is also a North Dakota State guy.
Yep.
So he's asking how high will Watson go when he obliterates the combine? Because he's
I
going to
think
kill that combine.
bro, look, go check. People need to go watch him play and look how fast he looks when he gets the ball, and then go look up. Just type in Christian Watson. Just type in miles per hour, right?
Yes.
I just want to put this in the reference for people. Him and that guy have at number 2 have clocked similar speeds.
Yep.
And the reason why I believe is because people aren't close to him. He's a deep threat. Go look when he was with Trey Lance. It was aired out. And he has NFL genes. Like
Yep.
they matter. Like the kid's a great athlete. I think Christian Watson, I won't say he creeps to the first because I feel like there's a cap on FCS guys. There just is.
There is. Yeah.
I think he gets into the second round because he's an elite athlete. I think me and was it me and Croc? We were commenting back and forth the other day, and they were like, "Well, why did Cooper Kupp go in the third round or something like that?" I was like, "Well, he wasn't an elite athlete. Extremely productive, the best, the one of the most productive receivers ever at the college level. But he ran a 4.6. He had a below average vert. If you're a receiver or any type of perimeter player and you don't test out in an elite category, you're not going in the first 2 rounds. That's just reality.
Yep.
Athlete, your traits matter.
Yeah. Christian Watson is a guy who I want to say. So I actually watch more FCS football during the season than I watch FBS football. Now, obviously,
Okay.
I watch more FBS in the off season. But FCS, especially the playoff time, I'm all about that. I love
Oh
FCS
yeah.
playoffs.
Shout out to the FCS guys, man.
Yeah. So spring ball last year, I watched almost all the playoffs. The year before that, I was watching a lot of the playoffs and stuff. And I gotta tell you, man, Watson's been a guy who I've been super high on. I didn't think his hype would ever get as high as it's going to
Me
be,
either. Me either.
but
I was aware of him. I knew who he was, but
yeah, well, he wasn't. He almost didn't make it to the Senior Bowl. He was going to be a Shrine guy.
it and that's why the Senior Bowl is so good, and that's
It
why
is.
I wait. I typically wait till after those games and make it, because now we get to see them against the best guys, and we get to see how they actually move against. And shout out to my SCS guys, but there's a drop in competition, just like there's a drop in competition from Group of 5 to Power 5. When Christian Watson, you see him move in person, the suddenness he has, the twitchiness that he has at 6'4", 200 plus. It's like, oh, okay, like you belong in that top category, and that's what's so valuable about getting that Senior Bowl invite, about being there where all eyes are on you. And he did well. He passed the test with flying colors.
Yeah, he's one of 2 FCS receivers. That's one. The other ones in the class too is Jaquez Ezzard from Sam
Oh,
Houston State.
yeah, he can go.
Probably my 2 favorite FCS receivers in the last
Ezra can go, and he was
2.
also coached by Marion at Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah, Ezzard's a blast. But yeah, Clinton also adds here that Cup was going to be 24 before the season. So that was another reason why. It's actually still crazy he went in the 3rd round, considering all these things. But
yeah,
he was
extremely productive, and his offense. People don't know that him and Kendrick Bourne were teammates. Like, they had a great team. Like when they had I remember we thought we would match up with him at some point. Him and my former teammate Josh Barge were going game for game for the consecutive reception record. So Josh and him, I think it was at 46 at one point. I think we lost to Kennesaw, and Eastern Washington made it to the next round, and so Cup outlasted him. Yeah, Cup outlasted him. We were hurt about that, but yeah, Cup's a dog, man.
Yeah, there's a reason why he just had the best receiver season in the history of football.
He's all right. He's all right.
Pretty good. We got Matt here asking a question. He's actually right here in the chat as well. Stats Matt. He was talking about Waddle out there being a leader. I wish I remember what that was in reference to, Matt. It's probably about Mechie, I'm assuming, at Bama. But Matt also asked which stretch the field receivers are most likely to fit with the Colts and fit in Reich's scheme. And I think for me to because I know you and I didn't watch a lot of offense, the Colts offense. I think they really just need a guy who can kind of do what Paris Campbell was supposed to do.
Yeah,
where
stretch the field a little bit.
Stretch the field a lot. Be that guy who, if you give him a one-on-one, he's going to win that. But also underneath, you can give him those scheme touches and he can kind of go,
Yep.
Who do you think kind of fits that role? It doesn't even have to be someone from your top 12. It can be someone who didn't make your top 12 even.
I would love to see. Uh, he's not gonna make it to him, but obviously, like the guy like Dotson,
That's gonna be
um,
fun.
yeah, those type of guys. I'm trying to think. I won't say Calvin Austin. I think the Colts style of play is like somebody a little bit bigger, but that style of play is Calvin Austin. Guys that can light it up. I think hell Ezra later would be great. He'd be a great pickup because he can flat out go. Any of those guys that can stretch the field that may be available in the third round or so. I don't know if they necessarily go there in the second because style
No,
of yeah,
I
the
think they'll go
style of
left
receiver.
tackle. Probably they might go
Yeah,
left tackle.
the style of receivers that'll be available by the time the Colts pick, Watson, he could be there, but, I don't know if they necessarily go. I think 3rd, 4th round would be an area where they go for that type of guy. If you want just straight up juice, then you can go Calvin Austin. He's one of the fastest in the class. A guy that you like a lot, I know Alec Pierce. He can run a little bit,
Mhm.
but I don't know how good of a vertical threat he'll be on the next level.
Jake was just waiting for Calvin Austin to be mentioned.
Yeah.
He's a huge
Yeah,
Calvin
hey.
Austin fan.
No, he's a dog. I think even Sky Moore,
Yeah,
he can run. I think those type of guys would be definitely guys that would be in play there, especially
yeah.
in, like, the 3rd round or so.
Yeah, I think thinking about some bigger receivers that can also win down the field, I think
Mm,
Alec Pierce is obviously one of my guys. He actually would
yep,
have been my number 10 if my list actually went to 10.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it got cut off there. He was my number 10. I think he can win vertically, but he's not a guy who is
Jeez.
going to priority ones. But yeah, Jake's going is really pumped right now in the chat. He didn't see him on the initial list. He didn't see Sky Moore or Calvin Austin. He
Yeah,
was going to lose it. But no, Alec Pierce, I think, is a guy who can get behind guys, but I don't think he's a consistent deep
mhm,
threat. I'm
yeah.
really intrigued by Jalen Tolbert.
Oh my god. Yeah, no,
I
yeah, no,
just he's big,
mhm.
but he can fly, and I'm
He's
like,
he's the I think I said it on my podcast when I talked about receivers. I think Jalen Tolbert tracks the deep ball better than any receiver in this class.
so that's
I
why when I think of deep ball receiver that fits Indy because he's
Yep,
bigger, dude,
yep.
too. He's the guy who comes to mind for me.
Yeah,
Not
100.
a Calvin
That's
Austin.
a home run guy.
Yeah, because he's the guy. Like, if you give him I mean, if you have him one on one, he'll bully a receiver and he'll also just
Oh,
run past him.
and you can't, and he's not an easy cover. Like some guys are
Mhm.
easy covers down the field. Jalen Tolbert fights. When you go cut the Tennessee game on, like the
Yeah,
Tennessee game on, he's over there. His one hand catches here. He took the one that did it for me was the 75-yard reception against Tennessee. And I was like, because you question the lower level guy's speed, the group of five, the FCS speed. But when you just take off for 70 plus yards on any SEC team, check. You know what I'm saying? But I
yeah,
was so amazed with his ability to track the deep ball and consistently get behind people. Jalen Tolbert would be perfect. I think, and he'll be there. I have
yep,
him at 12, but that's just I just have a ton of respect for his game. But that'd be a match made in heaven.
yep.
Jalen Tolbert for sure.
Yeah, round 3, maybe round 4, but I feel like you'd have to trade up a little bit if you're waiting for round
Yeah,
4.
yeah,
That's where I really like him. I think he had a pretty good Senior Bowl too. Like, I don't think it was like otherworldly. Like
yeah.
Christian Watson like tore up the Senior Bowl.
Lit it up.
Uh, yeah, but I think it was pretty darn good. He was in that like second tier of receivers there. You could tell.
And I think he had a lot of hype coming in, obviously a
Mhm.
hometown guy and he dominated. But in that setting, it's made for the twitchy guys. It just is.
Yeah, it is.
His style of play is a lot of it's going to be based off chemistry. A lot of it's going to be based off of him being, I think, on the next level, being the second guy or being maybe a fast slot guy that can work, defense up the middle of the field and work that post a little bit. That's where I think his role would be. But his Senior Bowl's not where he's going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, yeah. So we got another question here on Twitter from Leo at Chile76, I think is how you say it. Who's the best pure route runner that you can get on day 2? I think you and I are going to agree on this one.
On day 2,
It's got to be Mechie, right? You got to be
oh yeah,
Mechie.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Healthy Mechie. It's butter. The
Yeah.
routes are crisp. He has, he works from short to middle to his double moves. They're clean. Doesn't waste movement. He can beat you off the line. Mechie's right there. Mechie's at the top.
Wandell is fun. Wandell is fun. I don't know if I would call him like a great route runner, but like he's
W-
so twitchy. He's so
Wandale's a
twitchy.
great. I put it. Wandale's a great mover.
Yes.
Um, he
Yep.
moves great. He moves effortlessly. He climbs up on people and then he's sudden.
Yeah.
I see Wandale more. I'm interested to see what he runs, but I think his style of play is like that Waddle. You know what I mean? Like I
Yep.
don't know if he necessarily has the straight jets that he has, but he's fast. And I think he has that style of play where people weren't necessarily talking about Waddle's route running because it was probably like solid. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And he has good stop and start ability. That's Wandale Robinson, in a
Yeah.
nutshell. And him and John Mechie, they're fun, but different styles of route runners. But John Mechie is the classic, I'm gonna cook you. Like, you think you got me, but you don't.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. We got Keenan or Kanan. I think it's Kanan. I gotta ask. I gotta get him on a show one of these times and talk to him. But at Vivo Jones 007, favorite receivers for X, Y, and Z positions on day two. So your favorite X receiver on day two, your
mhm.
favorite Z receiver, and your favorite slot guy.
Hmm. I think I think a guy
Yeah, I
I
didn't bring
think a
up your
guy
list.
like my favorite slot guy, I'm gonna go day two. I think
Hmm.
Mechie.
Yeah.
I say Mechie. Um, I think David Bell would be next. I'd probably have him. Yeah, probably have him at that X. Um, and then day two, and then I mean, and Watson. I mean, I have the guys here. I don't think Dotson's gonna make it out of the first round. So I'm basically
Hmm.
gonna go 8 through 12 here. I think those guys will settle into that, and I'll go, Watson, Mechie, and Bell. No, no,
Yeah.
yeah, I went Watson, Mechie, Bell. I just think their style of play, those three, they all bring something different to the table. Watson's a legitimate deep threat, legitimate athlete. I think Mechie can kill people from the slot. You know what I mean? Like you can move him around, but he'd kill people in the slot, work that intermediate area, and then you line David Bell on the outside. Get him off the ball a little bit, and I think he can win, especially being like a number two option for somebody.
Yeah, and I will just go a little different. My favorite X I'll put as Alec Pierce on day two.
Yep,
I think he's gonna be a very good X from day one. Favorite slot I'll go with Wandell Robinson just because of that suddenness.
yep.
I just
Not mad at
I
it.
just envision like he is basically Kadarius Toney to me. Like I don't think he's got the because didn't Kadarius Toney run like a 4.3? I don't think he's
Did
gonna run that well.
and see, and I didn't think. I'm be honest. Like the people that I talked to, they told me Kadarius wasn't a burner at
Oh
all.
really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, but he's so sudden and he's so explosive. He plays faster than I think his 40 was that thing. He ran a good 40 or something like that. But Wandale
Yeah, I can't
Robinson,
remember what did Tony run. I gotta look that up now. Now I'm
yeah,
curious.
Wandale Robinson out of the slot is trouble.
He is.
You can give him a lot of volume. You get him the ball, and one of the reasons why he jumped into my rankings like so high was because I liked his ability after the catch. That was
Yeah.
a big thing for me when I made this list was
Hmm.
the yak ability. And
Yeah.
that's why Sky Moore and those guys didn't make it. They didn't make it in because I didn't feel like they played as strong, even though they have the same ability. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Kadarius Tony ran a 4.39 at the
Shoot.
Gators Pro Day, but it
Okay.
was at the Pro Day, so
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
probably like mid four
Before,
fours, like
yeah,
mid four fours.
yeah. Kyle Phillips
Um.
is a guy me and Zach talked about for sure. I just
Yeah.
saw Clinton.
Yeah. Clinton's
Yeah,
done some good. We'll go through your guys' stuff here in a second. Kyle Phillips, we were both talking like he's not going to be in our top 12,
yeah.
but he's going to be in the NFL for so
Yeah,
long.
he's good. Go watch like
He's good.
that touchdown against LSU was impressive. That was him, right?
Yes, that was the long
Yeah.
touchdown against LSU.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that
the
was
the
him.
deep
It was so
crosser when it
smooth,
yeah,
so smooth.
everybody crucified Stingley, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, he gave it up." It looked like he didn't have any inside help. That's a hard route to
Mhm.
cover, and then Phillips is a good receiver. But then they just missed the tackle, but he was tough. Like I like the route, I like the speed, I like the toughness after the catch. That was a great play for Phillips. Yeah, and then I see Jake down there. He's sad now. No, Sky
No,
can play.
it's funny though. Kyle Phillips. I hate just throwing the white receiver equals white receiver, but if you
Oh no,
Like
no.
I just hate doing the every white receiver is a white receiver, but I think Tyler
Look,
Phillips is very Hunter Renfro.
if if the shoe fits, you know,
The shoe
if the shoe
fits.
fits. So we're gonna let that one rock out.
We are. We are. We'll go through some of your guys' questions on the side here, and then I'll finish off the other ones that we got. Jake mentions how Mechie is such a solid fit for the Colts. Yeah, dude. Like they need a guy like that. They just need a guy who can get open, like
Yeah,
badly.
I can win.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the major spot where people miss, and I think where teams miss, whether it's GM scouts, not necessarily, I think they miss, is they kind of overlook how a guy wins and can he win consistently. I know they all probably say that, it's probably at the top of their thing, but they get enamored with these other traits. It's like if a guy can win consistently and he can catch the ball, he's going to be good.
Yep.
And
It's
and
very
it's
simple. Very simple.
it's really simple, but then you go out there and then no shot at this guy, but like you get a Philip Dorsett. You know what I'm saying?
You
Like
had to say that. You're on a cult show, and you
yeah,
had to say that.
it's just being honest. Like that was the first one that popped in my head because I remember when they drafted him. When they drafted him, I even looked at it funny, and I wasn't even into this realm yet. And I was like, yeah, that was a little. What you trying to do here?
Colts
So,
fans also looked at it funny, and they were supposed to be hyped about it, but they all looked at
uh,
it funny too.
yeah, okay. So I'm good. They wanted the next Ty, man.
They did so bad, and it just blew up in their face.
Ty special. So
He is. He is. He's one of a kind. Clinton asked as well, what round do you think Justin Ross will go if the health checks out? That's so interesting
he's
because
the wild card.
the health has been so bad the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of bad luck. Elite ball skills. When you talk about, he's I don't, he may be one of him and Garrett Wilson may be the most acrobatic receivers like in this class. Like you go look at his freshman year, he was a first round lock.
Yeah.
But the injuries, he didn't look as sudden for some reason. Like he looked before he had some twitch to him, and now he just doesn't look as sudden. He looks like a quintessential possession receiver.
Yeah.
Like that's what he looks like. I think if he checks out, maybe I think he's probably mid round if he checks out. And he has to test well. That's the thing. He has to test well, he has to get cleared. And those are a lot of things that I don't think are gonna go in his favor. I think he's gonna run an average 40. I just didn't see elite burst, elite speed anymore. Not that he was a burner before, but he had adequate speed. I think T probably goes fifth round, sixth round, maybe. Just depends on how it tests out. It's such a wild card. He can go third or he can go fifth or sixth. So it's
Yeah,
a
and I
weird one.
think I think one of the issues is he played this past year on a stress fracture in his foot as well. So he has a stress
Okay.
fracture in his foot. So I don't even know if he'll test because I know that he
Yeah.
just had surgery on it not too long ago.
Okay.
But yeah, he had stress fracture in his foot, and he had that really rare injury. I think it was in his
Yeah.
neck.
Spine, neck, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's tough. And NFL teams do not like red
Neck.
flags.
No,
Like
and you will, and he'll get flagged. Obviously, he's already flagged. You know what I mean? Just as far as like, okay, hey, we have to triple, quadruple check this guy, and
Mhm.
then Clemson didn't help him like
No.
this past year. That it was a bad situation. Quarterback play was below average. And he maybe mid to late if he's lucky. So
Yeah. Tyler Ward asks anything on Tanner Connor. Now Tyler always does this to me. Asks me guys that I have no clue who they are. Do you
I
know
have
who
not
Tanner
watched
Connor?
it.
Is? No.
Do not. Do not.
Tyler, we're gonna do some research on him. I promise. Okay. You gotta tell us what school, Tyler. I'm sure he'll throw it in the bottom here.
Look it up there.
Let's see what else we got here. Clinton says that Tolbert plays a lot
Idaho
like
State.
which one? Idaho State.
Idaho State.
I got to slap another Hunter Renfro comp on a guy here.
Oh man,
Dude, it's so easy. Whenever you see a white receiver, just throw Hunter Renfro as the comp throughout
yeah,
every
you're
single one
good.
of them.
You're good.
We got Clinton Sims. I thought Tolbert played like Kenny Galladay a bit. Good speed, but underrated route runner. The way that he goes after the ball in the air, I can see it for sure.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it if you look up and you match him with a good quarterback and he has that type of role. He's respected, but nobody's like, oh, Jalen Tolbert's the guy. But everybody has respect for Galladay. He surprised people with his production, and he's a good receiver. So
Yeah. Matt asked, who should the Colts get to be their Debo when they get Jimmy G in a couple weeks? We don't know about the Jimmy G thing, but
yeah,
here's one thing I want to say before we get into this, though. There's a reason why the Debo Samuel role is like one person's really done it, because
it's not a
it's an
thing. Like
insane role. It's an insane role.
it's not it's so rare because it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the few times where a college player's game was used in the NFL.
Yeah.
Debo played that way in college, and because South Carolina was a bad program. They did it
Yep.
with Farrell Cooper. They did it with Debo Samuels. Debo Samuels just happened to be a little bit more physically imposing, and the 49ers happened to be a little bit better of an organization. And I think Farrell was with the 49ers for a minute, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was like a really
The
good kick
Rams.
returner. I think he was an all-pro kick returner
Yeah,
like
the
twice.
Rams, the
Yeah.
49ers, like, yeah, okay. But yeah, that's a rare, rare role. I don't think it's fair to try to, put people in that. But it is what it is at this point. So
Yeah. But if we're talking guys who, to a much lesser extent, can kind of do something like that, I'm going to talk about a guy who's not going to probably wouldn't even be in our top 20 because he hasn't
mhm.
really produced a ton, but Velus Jones out of Tennessee.
He's not the Bama boy,
Yeah. He's a tank. He's a
Yeah, no, he
tank.
great athlete. He lit it
Yeah.
up in the 100-meter in high school.
Yep.
He's from in down in South Alabama. I know who he was coming to high school because he could flat out fly.
Mm-hmm.
We used to mess with one of my former teammates. If you go watch Velus Jones's state championship 100-meter, you'll see a guy coming like second or third, like trotting
Mm-hmm.
behind him. And that's my former teammate Charles. And we're like, "Hey, Charles, you got toast." He's like, "Man, he was fast." He was, but
But
Velus,
isn't he like 215, like
He's a
220 as
he's
well?
he's a bigger guy. He was not that big in high school.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I know he
Okay.
went to USC, USC initially, which baffled a lot of people. I believe he was supposed to go to Oklahoma, and then something changed last minute. And then finally ended back up at Tennessee. Good returner. He can go. He's got some gas to him. And he's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being a better pro than college guy because just the places he was at wasn't necessarily conducive for his success.
Yeah, for
So.
sure. But he's the Debo role to a much lesser extent guy
Yeah,
in this
and he's
class.
got more juice than Debo. Debo's got that physical, like 4'4", 6. I'm gonna run through you and running back type. Velus can take off. Like
Yeah.
Velus he got some gas.
There's a reason why he's one of the best kick returners in all of college
Yeah,
football.
just get out of there. No, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. Clinton mentions about when we talk about Kyle Phillips, he hates that happened to Stingley because now people are
Yeah,
overthinking him. Marshawn Lattimore light. Yeah. If you want to watch last week's episode,
yeah,
we had a lot of high praise for Derek Stingley.
yeah, facts. CB1.
Jake mentioned, he said, would you say Mechie, Austin, and Sky Moore are all second rounders?
I think Mechie's a second rounder for sure.
Yeah.
Sky Moore, and Austin, very good football players. But I do think the little guys not having a lot of success the last 2 years has hurt them. When you look at the Eskridge, you look at the Tutu Atwells, I think you have to look at trends. Those guys haven't had a lot of success, and I think Tyreek Hill gave them an opportunity, and they needed to run with it. Love Calvin Austin, though. Like, love Calvin Austin. He's one of my favorite. You can go listen to podcasts from a year ago, and I was talking about Calvin Austin.
Oh,
And so big fan of him. And Scott Moore, I think they probably fall third, fourth round. They probably may not make it out the third, but around that area, third, fourth round guys.
yeah.
And really good football players. But Mechie, I think he's a second round guy for sure.
Yeah, the thing with Calvin Austin for me, and I really like Calvin Austin. I think he's awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't he like 5'7", like
He's
170?
he's like 5'7.5". I know he played at roughly 160-ish, 150 something
Yeah.
at times in college.
That's my concern right there. Because Tutu
Yeah.
Atwell was a major bust. Like
And
we already know he's
outlier.
a bust. Yeah.
Yeah, outlier, complete outlier. I think Calvin Austin is a better football player, flat out. Calvin Austin
No,
plays.
absolutely. Tutu Atwell, no.
Yeah, he was a get the ball, run kind of, scream across the field type. Calvin Austin's actually a good receiver. He's actually a much more complete receiver.
Yes.
He can win you, beat you in press. He's savvy. He plays big for a little guy. And I applaud him for coming in at 170. I know that was hard for him because he's not a big guy, but he's
Yeah.
actually a track guy that plays with that speed. But the little guys they're not as popular anymore. But I would say those 185, 190, the 200ish guys, that's the sweet spot if you're a smaller guy. Which is why you look at I know he's not short, but you look at the Garrett Wilsons, the John Mechie's, they're right there between little and big, and I think that's why they're so coveted.
Yeah. And then Robert mentioned here, agility and speed scores always looking for in receivers at the combine. Route running and separation. I think the biggest constant we've seen with receivers that hit is just separation.
Yeah,
We're not see like N'Keal Harry's and those type of guys and
the premier trait.
JJ Arcega Whiteside or whatever. We're
Yeah,
not seeing guys who we're not really
Tyler
seeing jump ball
Johnson.
receivers. Yeah, Tyler
Yeah.
Johnson. You have to be able to separate, and I think those agility and speed scores. And Robert, you're gonna love Wandell Robinson. I don't know if you've watched him yet, but
Oh yeah, no, he's gonna light it up. They one thing I mentioned the other day when I was talking, I was like T Higgins. I was talking about Drake London. T Higgins is a better mover than Drake London, and Drake London's a bigger guy. But like, I think people kind of group T Higgins into this weird spot where, yes, he was a jump ball receiver, but he had twitch. He just didn't have long. He didn't have long speed.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But he was a great mover. He was twitchy. He can make people miss. That's where people are missing these jump ball receiver guys. They're getting the guys who can't necessarily make people miss, and that's why I think Drake London's very, very good. But like, if there's a guy in this group that has that label on him a little bit, it's Drake London because he doesn't move great. He
yeah,
needs to be put into a spot to where he can succeed early and not going to be forced to just body up these big NFL corners all the time.
yeah.
So
And Tyler gives us a little thing on Tanner Connor, a little too big for the Renfro comp, 6'3", 225, and reportedly runs sub 4.4. All right, so Michael Strawn comp is what I'm going to throw on.
no, that's I feel like I've seen Tanner Connor's like name like
Yeah,
pop up somewhere, like last year for some reason. But I mean, if he's 6'3", 225 and he runs up 4.4, I want to see how he moves. Um,
it's going to be
you
all
know,
straight. Everyone gets in his
yeah,
way.
like
He's going to run him
is
over.
is this a guy that's a tight end who plays receiver, or
Jacob
is he?
Harris.
Yeah, like what is he like? He'd be a mismatch for a lot of people. So I want to see how he moves and things like that. So I'll check him out. You got my attention. So
Dude, this is like when you used to play the old college football games and you would get that 5-star recruit to come to Idaho State and they would just be
you're like,
six
what?
five.
No, it's not even fair. You're like, what is this random guy to the middle of nowhere, and then
Yeah.
I'm just 1,500 yard receiving.
Last question I want to ask you, and we'll pop off and make sure we don't get. Oh, actually, here we got Tyler here with another one. How does Watson complement a receiver like Michael Pittman Jr.?
It backs the defense up.
He does.
Um, he's a deep threat. He's a true deep threat. He's a vertical guy. Um, it allows Michael Pittman to eat in the medium part of the field, the intermediate part of the field. It allows him to do that dirty work that he's so good at and where he's so reliable. You look at some of his best plays. It was in that area. He could take a 5-yard pass, make it 15, 20 yards. And it takes the pressure off the offense as a whole. It opens up everything for Jonathan Taylor, for Pittman Jr. It opens up everything because now those guys have to respect it and they have to back up a little bit.
Yeah. And the last question I want to ask you is because you and we are big on dogs. That's our thing. Who of these 12 gets your number one? Gets your dog stamp of approval?
Oh, it's the Bulldog.
It's the Bulldog.
It's the
George
Bulldog.
Pickens.
It's George Pickens.
Absolutely.
It's George Pickens, man. Like George Pickens has that man, that edginess that you want on the field. That when I was growing up watching T.O., like he's gonna punch another Bama guy. We were always repping, underrated state. But George Pickens, I feel like he'll catch 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on you and let you know about it. He enjoys the blocking. I feel like he's a tough guy. He didn't have to come back out there. What I'm saying, this year. He's pretty solidified as a prospect. He just has to check out medical. But George Pickens is the dog in this class. Like, Georgia, blah, blah, blah. But like he's the guy that's a dog. Like when he lines up, like if I ask 10 DBs, who's the guy, honestly, with being anonymous, who's the guy that you don't want to go against because they all say ain't nobody? George Pickens. Like he
Oh yeah.
nasty. He nasty.
Yep.
He trying to take me out.
Yep. That was a leading question by me because I wanted to end this show on something praising George Pickens because
Okay.
if Pickens is there for the Colts, he won't
Yep.
be. But if he's there, if say some teams are scared off by the medical, if he's there at 47, he's by far and away my favorite option for the Colts on day 2. I know people will say, "Oh, they keep drafting big receivers, yada yada yada," but Pickens is
He has juice.
He's the type of guy who can be a wide receiver 1.
Yep.
And you're not going to get any other guy you're going to get at 47 is not going to be that.
No.
Pickens can be a top wide receiver in the league. He's that special.
Well, that's why I had him above. That's why I had him at 5.
Yeah, I have him at 4, I think. Let me see.
Yeah, so I
have
have
him at 4.
If you're in that top 5 for me in this class, especially,
Mhm.
I think you're a wide. I think you plug you into most offenses right away. You're a wide receiver 1.
Yep.
George Pickens isn't just a big receiver. He has great movement skills. He's an acrobatic receiver, and he has enough juice, kind of in that Garrett Wilson, type area where he's fast enough to get behind you. He's not a jump ball receiver. I think he was because his quarterback play was so bad.
Yep.
But George Pickens can get behind you, and he can be that wide receiver 1. And if he somehow sneaks to the Colts and they happen to get Jimmy G and all that, or whatever the case was, I think it'd be good for him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I think George Pickens and Michael Pittman Jr. would be a great combination. I think it would be similar to, a little different, but Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, how those two work together. But obviously Pickens, like we said, has a little bit more juice to his game. I think those two would work very well together.
Yeah. George Pickens is my favorite option for the Colts. I think he would be, I was saying all last draft season, if Kwity Paye was there for the Colts in the first round, run to the podium. That's my thing with George Pickens this year. If he's there at 47, you sprint and you go get him.
Yeah, you go get him.
But yeah, this wide receiver class, guys, is really, really, really good. I really like this wide receiver class. We're seeing it every year. There's deeper and deeper
7 babies.
Yep, 7-on-7 babies. We're getting these deeper and deeper wide receiver classes. And I think there's going to be a lot of good options for the Colts in this class. So that's how we'll end this one off, guys. I want to give special shout-outs to Clinton, Tyler, and Robert for joining us. And then obviously Matt and Jake, because they're here every single week. I do appreciate you guys. But we'll be back next week. And I'm not sure, what position do we want to talk about next week? Do I want to get Colts fans upset by doing edge? And talk about Karlaftis.
So such a deep group. We might as well. I was thinking it'd probably be edge or running backs. Or something
just
something
to actually go in order if we did running back.
Yeah, but no, edge would be fun. It's one of the deepest in the deepest in the entire draft, I believe. The receivers are extremely deep, but this is a pretty, this is a great edge class if you're looking for a guy, because some of these second and third round guys shouldn't be second and third round guys, and I think in some years. So we'll go edge. I'll post my edge rankings, 24 to 48 hours before we do the episode, and we'll be rocking. So
now guys, edge is what I'm working on for the draft guide that I'm helping with. So this one I'll actually be very prepared for. Edge, if we do edge or offensive tackle, I'm super prepared for. But edge is going to be an absolute blast. That's going to be a fun one. But yeah, guys, catch us next week. Jump on and for another episode of SI Colts Draft Show for next week when we're doing edge rushers. See you guys. Have a good one.